wherever you may be on this fine day. We're going to pick up where we left off just a week ago, and it was with a statement that really surprised me. It was one that I'm sure I should have known, but I didn't know prior to translating it. I had always thought that Yahowah's favored son, Dowd, who was Christians and others will refer to as David, even though there is no V in the Hebrew language, and the Wah is pronounced as an O, and it's D, so Dalef, Wah, Dalef, Dowd. That the reason that the favored son could not build the house, and it's not a temple, it's just a house for the family of Yahowah, is because he was a man of war. He had spilled too much blood. And while the legends of history are all the great warriors of history, Yahowah does not want his family associated with killing. So it's the thing that made Alexander the Great famous, Julius Caesar famous, the thing that made really all of the most infamous leaders of yesteryear famous, is something that God says, now this is the thing that's going to preclude you from building the house for my name. So let's read through this, and there's several things in it that stand out to me. Hello, Kirk. How are you?
How are you?
Good. So then Dowd said to Solomon. Solomon is the actual name of Solomon. It's based upon the Hebrew word shalom, which means to reconcile a relationship and to restore. So then Dowd said to Solomon, my son, I had it in my thinking, judgment, and desire. This is leb. Is with or in, and leb is the Hebrew word for heart, but it's very seldom used to describe the organ that pumps blood. The English colloquium, take it to heart. What that means is that you incorporate it, accept it, and incorporate it into your thinking and your perspective. So somebody has presented an idea, it should resonate with you to the degree that you take it to heart, become part of the fabric of your life. In Hebrew, the heart was considered the seat of judgment. The liver,
very appropriate.
Right, the liver was the seat of emotions. So taking to heart does not mean feel all lovey-dovey about it. If it was taken to liver, it would be feel emotional about it. But it isn't. It's take it to heart. And so in my heart, leb, with my heart, this is with my thinking, with my judgment, in concert with my motivation, my desire. Fundamental to the way that I evaluate things and take them to heart. That I would build for the family, this is la bana. Now, some might just say, well, the verb bana means to build, to establish, to restore. And some might just say, why not just leave it at that? That I would build. Well, why take it to the family? Because the reason for that is that bana is the feminine of ben.
Right.
And it's not actually daughter, which you think that Ben's son would be the feminine would be Benah, and it's very close to that, but it's not written exactly that way. But Benah speaks of, in particular, building a family home, building the family name, establishing the family name. So that I would build for the family a home, bayat, a house. Now this is where it gets really interesting. To recognize and approach the name of Yahowah. So what people would call a temple, Yahowah said, no. this is not only a family home that we're going to build, so you're not building it for me. You're not building it to honor me. You're not building it to worship me. You're not building it to as a tribute to me. You know, that's not what this is here. This is not like the Dome of the Houthi Prince that Allah had his Muslims build, or worse, the Kaaba, which was the rock pile to rock gods in Mecca. No, this is a house for the family, and beyond that, it's to approach the name Yahowah. Yeah, it really is, because what that is saying is that this is a specific family that you're joining.
Right.
You're going to have, when you approach Yahowah, your last name is his name.
It cannot be a family of worshipers. It could not be a family of praisers.
Right.
That would be ridiculous in this country.
Right. So this is a family home to approach the name. And there are a lot of people, Kirk, that try to discount who we are and what we know, what we have to share, by saying, you know, you kind of have a religious zeal, a cult-like affection here for this name, for the words, and for the name. Yeah, the name of God.
Kind of a cult-like.
Yeah.
He's pretty sad about his words and his name.
Yeah. This was to approach.
With him.
Yeah, to recognize that the house is being built for the family.
Yeah.
So as to recognize and approach the name of Yahowah. Which means if you want to recognize Yahowah's name, you have to do it from the perspective of family. Right. Well, that certainly tells us that our interpretation of his name is correct. We see his name as having being comprised of the Father's hand reaching out and down to his children, just as any father would reach out and down with an open hand to lift his children up, and then two children. And those two children are Abraham and Sarah. Yeah. And it's the family that created the covenant. And so the perspective to recognize Yahowah's name is the family home, which was created initially through Abraham and Sarah, with the two people standing upright, reaching up to God. The last one, because it's a hey at the end of a name or word, is feminine.
Well, I even see a great deal of significance because it has a wall, not only because it's increasing the family home, like the tent peg that it represents, but even more so in that it increases us enlightenment, empowerment. If God were a Lord or king, then he is highly unlikely to lift us up to become like him.
Oh, no, of course, because a king, royalty, a lord, always wants to have people bow down before them. They sit up on their throne above everyone, and everyone has to approach them in a manner of humility, heads bowed, get down on their knees when they approach them. And, it's a lord-serf kind of relationship. Everyone is subservient. Like, for example, most recently, the king of Saudi Arabia moved the heir apparent to the throne aside and elevated his son to be the new king. Not that the people got any say in that. And then the first thing they had to do is they all had to swear allegiance to him. Go down to the mosque and bow down before him and swear allegiance to him. That's and this perspective on Yahowah is the opposite of that. Not only is it a family, but the two people that are in Yahowah's name, the two Hays, are two people standing up, reaching up, looking up. Those are the two Hays, the letter that's repeated in Yahowah's name. It's the antithesis of bowing down, but it is exactly what you would expect, that hand reaching out and lifting children up from the perspective of family. So Dode is saying that he, in his judgment, in his thinking, he was going to build the family home to recognize and approach the name of Yahowah, so that you'd understand Yahowah's name. Then it came to be with me the word of Yahowah. Now, the word of Yahowah is what made Dode Dode.
Mm-hmm.
And he studied it, he sang about it, he lived it. And so it came to exist with me that the word of Yahowah, to say, too much blood you have shed, and a great many wars you have engaged in. So you shall not build a home for my name, because of the substantial quantity of blood that you have spilled upon the land and before my presence. Behold, a son shall be born to you, who shall exist as an individual of favor and tranquility, of freedom and contentment. And I will free him from conflict, from all of his enemies, from all around, because Shalomah shall be his name. So, favorable reconciliation and satisfying restoration from Shalom, and freedom from unfavorable circumstances and conflict, I will give to Yisrael throughout his days. So when Yahowah what Yahowah is saying to him is that you got one part right. It is a home to approach my name. He repeated that part of it. He said, but you're my son, I love you, I'm your father, but you're not the one that's going to build the home. And Yahowah wanted it very clear that the home would be built for the purpose of reconciliation and restoration, right?
Right.
So,
I think it's very significant, he said, through his days, because he did imply beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
And the empire, as it was, I mean, it became the highest point in their culture, and the highest point of their
Israel shall never be as great as it was during the transition from Dode to his son Solomon, until Yahowah returns and reestablishes it.
Right.
So this is an important perspective. But the single most important perspective is if you follow Dode to Yahowah, you will find reconciliation and restoration. The relationship, which is the covenant, will be reconciled, and your soul will be restored. That's where Dode leads, if you follow him. But as we began this, the thing that also stands out here is that the thing that made all people throughout history famous is the thing God says I'm not going to be associated with in terms of the home for my name. You know, I am not a war god. I'm not a god of death. I'm about life. I'm not about conflict. I'm about peace. I'm not about enslaving other people. I'm about providing freedom.
Yeah.
And that's what
in all fairness, he just cleaned his house because nobody else would. So David took the, he started with Goliath and kept going. And,
right.
He never asked him to go out and enslave anybody else or conquer new lands, just the land that he gave to Abraham from the start. So
and that's really interesting. Those people that would say that, well, God certainly would support wars of defensive wars, where you're fighting for your because somebody is trying to invade you or conquer you, and 100% of the battles that Dode fought were against foes that had come into Israel.
And invaded that.
Foes that were trying to destroy Israel. He wasn't going out trying to conquer other lands.
No. He didn't cross. He didn't cross to the Nile and take. And he could have. Right. He didn't go over to Babylon, which was weak at the time, and take them. He could have gone north to Syria and taken them all the way up to Persia, all the way up to the northern part of the rivers. And he could have taken as much land as he wanted, if he wanted to, down to Arabia. He would have no match, but that wasn't his intent. It certainly wasn't Yahweh's intent.
No. Yah made it such that Dode would win every battle, and that no foe would ever be successful against him, because Dowd was about doing something that Yahowah wanted, which was to remove from the land all of these foreign religious, political, and military elements, because he wanted to have peace and reconciliation in his home with his family. And the only way to do that was to remove the poisons, the infection, the foreign foes that were there that were so corrupting. And he did a wonderful job of that.
Yeah, it's the first step he made. His first step in Bereth covenant. In the family home. I mean, in the deal, you have to get away from Bible.
Right. And so what Dowd did in the covenant, the first request is that requirement really is that you have to walk away from Babylon. You have to walk away from your country, from the human society, if you will, even from your father's house, because your father is all likely not covenant. And so that's the first requirement. And if Babylon is in your home because of your predecessors didn't keep it clean, then Dowd did what needed to be done. He cleansed the home. He removed Babel from his home. And this is an interesting statement that Dowd tells Solomon next. Refined gold by weight for the model and detailed plan. This is tabnith, the pattern for the replica and likeness representing something. Of the ceremonial chariots. Now, these are not war chariots. A chariot was the fastest form of locomotion of the day, and this particular chariot is a transport vehicle that is designed to be ridden. Of the cherubim are the guardians, remember, of Eden, who hovered over Yahowah's throne and the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant. It's from Karutz, heralds to make proclamations, Kara, which is cottage home, and Kara, banquet and feast, where an exchange is made as part of a bargain, and Karub, to provide blessings. This is the back of the mercy seat. Now, the Ark of the Covenant, a lot of people think it's just a chest because it's Ark. It is a chest, and inside of that chest are the 10 statements that Yahowah etched in stone. And those 10 statements are profoundly important. They begin by Yahowah introducing himself by name and introducing his purpose, which is the antithesis of what Christians have been beguiled into believing was the nature of the God of what they call the Old Testament and of Israel. He says, I am Yahowah, and I led you away from bondage in Mitzrayim. You shall not exist with any other gods in my presence. He's a liberator. He's about freedom. To be with Yahowah is not only to be free of your sins, but it's to be free of human corruption, and it's to be ultimately free to be able to express your choices and will, and to be empowered, and to no longer be constrained by time or the limitations of 3 dimensions or the ill effects of thermodynamics. So where we go from order to disorder, and we degrade and decay over time.
Yeah, no, but that.
Yeah, that you had a decaying experience last week. I was primed. This week you were stoned. Yeah, it's not in the hippie sense of marijuana, but in the sense of passing a kidney stone, which is, as they say, worse than the pain associated with giving birth to a child, and you have no precious little treasure when you're done. Yeah, I'm not going to make a trophy of that sucker.
Laugh about it now.
You can laugh about it now. Yeah, and make sure that it never happens again.
I hope.
Yeah. And if there ever was a time in your life you're going to say yes to drugs, that is the moment. Refined gold by weight for the model and detailed plan of the ceremonial chariots, these transport vehicles to be ridden, of the cherubim. Now, the reason that's important is that the cherubim are spiritual beings.
Mm-hmm.
They're beings comprised of light. They're winged beings because they're not constrained to the kind of locomotion that we have or to gravity as we are. They can move very quick. As a matter of fact, they can go from being in Yahweh's presence in the seventh dimension into our presence in 3D.
In the same moment.
In the same moment.
Yeah.
Instantaneously. For them, they're not stuck in time. And as a seven-dimensional creature, but an energy-based entity, they're able to maneuver not in 7 dimensions in time, but in our 3D world, even in our 6-dimensional universe, if in fact dark energy and dark matter are dimensions along with time.
Mm-hmm.
They're able to maneuver in it. They're able to enter into our protection instantly. But the reason that they exist on the Ark of the Covenant of Yahowah is because the Ark of the Covenant does far more than hold the 10 statements that Yahweh etched with his own finger, telling us who he is. You know, every time I just mention the 10 statements, you just beg to go through them because they're so profound. I mean, the second one is don't be religious.
Yeah.
And the second one is, under no circumstances should you be religious, and don't even be caught in a religious environment. It concludes by saying that fathers corrupt their children generation after generation, and said that his mercy is available to thousands who observe the terms and conditions of the covenant, and thousands amongst billions is 1 in a million. And the way that you receive his mercy, it ain't through prayer. It isn't through bowing down. It isn't through being repentive. It isn't for spiritual laws or worshiping a dead god on a stick. It's about observing the terms and conditions of the covenant. And the third one, of course, is so essential because this was the house for approaching and recognizing the name. It says anyone who does anything that causes my name to be not, diminishes the value and recognition of my name, shall not be, shall not be forgiven. There is no forgiveness for diminishing the recognition, the value, and the importance of Yahweh's name. So those very people that will condemn us for being part of a cult because we make a big deal out of Yahweh's name, because he makes a big deal out of his name, should know that one of the 10 statements, in fact, the third on the first of the 2 tablets, says that his name is so important that those who would do anything which serves to negate the value of his name, like, for example, calling those of us who cherish his name, who speak his name, who write his name, who teach others to use his name, those who would demean those doing so, us, would be guilty of that statement that God etched in stone. Anyway, these 10...
It's pretty frightening when he says, I will not forgive this.
Correct. Oh, and by the way, the first statement on the second tablet, the fourth overall statement, is about the enduring nature of the Shabbat. Which means that if you're a Muslim and you're fixated on Fridays, that's sorry, but that happens to be the 6th day of the week. And if you're a Christian and you're worshiping God on Sunday,
first day of the week,
you're wrong on both issues. You shouldn't be worshiping God. This is a family. You don't worship in the family. And number 2, Sunday is the first day of the week, not the Shabbat, the 7th day of the week. So inside is the ark of the tablets that Yahweh etched in stone, because they are so essential to our understanding. On the outside, Yahweh said that the original scroll that was scribed by Moshe following the 40 days of transcription from Yahweh on Mount Horeb, that would always remain beside the Ark of the Covenant, and the purpose of that is to explain it, to explain how you get to sit there, how you get to ride it. Now, the Ark of the Covenant, yes, it holds those 10 Commandments, the statements of Yahweh. It is the place beside which the original scroll of the Torah still resides, explaining what it's all about. But most important of all, it's a seat, and it is a chariot. By chariot, it's a transport vehicle. It transports us from 3D to 7D, from mortal to immortal, from imperfect to perfect. It's a transport vehicle, and it is a seat in the sense of the most important seat in the world. It gives us the opportunity to sit at the place of honor beside Yahowah. It is our seat, and when we sit in that seat, guess what? We have wings. That's why the wings are the back of the seat. When we sit back into that seat, we have wings. And the wings are golden because the gold color reflects the light. And it's not just light, it's warmth of light, radiance of light, shimmering light, because our wings will be of light. Yeah.
All the dross is removed. So it's
right, and we become spiritual beings, which is again why the wings of a spiritual being are on the back of the mercy seat. I don't think there's many people that recognize what the Ark of the Covenant represents.
Everywhere you turn, Yahweh seems to tell the same story over and over. I was reading today through the end of this chapter, and it is the 10 years now, at least, or close to. I've been reading and studying this stuff, and it always comes back, and the more you delve into the words, like it or lump it, the more you delve into it, you're not going to find any other story. He tells, and when you do find something that's off, it's usually easy to find that it was transcribed by somebody or translated by somebody incorrectly, or we have no reference whatsoever to base it on or something like that. But the stuff that is tangible and easy to find and easy to prove historically that this was written in that period of time, it's always the same story. He's I don't want to say redundant. I don't want to say, because that's a negative kind of connotation for most people. But he is a profound teacher, and he obviously thinks we don't get it easily because he says it over and over, and over to bring it into us. Right. This is the plan.
Right, and here he has this word for plan that is marvelous. He says, "Refine gold by weight for the model and detailed plan." The tabnith, the pattern of the replica, the likeness representing something. So this is the plan of a replica of this transport vehicle. Of the gold was for the cherubim, these winged spiritual beings, to be made out of gold, which are spread out and adorn the ark. A marvelous visual image, a pattern, a plan, and so just to read that, okay, so this were the cherubim, and you have no idea what cherubim are except cute little winged, they're made always out to be almost baby angels, baby angels, little fat baby angels, and this chariot is now. You look at it as a war chariot as opposed to no. There's the Ark of the Covenant had no bridle. It had no reins. It wasn't horse drawn. It had loops on both sides and was lifted up so that and carried by the Lowing. Those who were the uniters, those who explained the purpose of all of this, they're the ones who on Pesach, Passover, made certain that some of the blood of the Passover lamb was sprinkled on the mercy seat to make us immortal, to perfect us. All of that is part of the symbol of this, and And it's a way, it was lifted up as it was carried, and the means to carry it was people walking. Because Yahowah wants us up on our feet and walking, and he wants to lift us up.
Yeah.
Right. So consider that is your throne, covenant member. Those are your wings, covenant member. That's your seat of honor. That's your transport vehicle from 3 dimensions to the empowerment and freedom of 7 dimensions.
But if you'd rather have a Lord, you can always just walk away.
Yeah, you can. And, you can, if you want to have a false god, be religious. Now, this was the Ark of the Covenant of Yahowah. Ark of the Covenant of Yahowah. So when Paul wrote in Galatians that the original covenant was with Ishmael and that it enslaved, and that's why they had to have a new covenant that Paul himself was responsible for. Shouldn't somebody have slapped old Paul up against the side of the head and said, "Hey, idiot, that original covenant wasn't with Ishmael.
No.
With Yahowah. It's Yahowah's covenant." And by the way, he made it not with Hagar and Ishmael, but with Sarah and Ishak. But it's still Yahowah's covenant.
Yeah.
Paul got everything wrong. And why would anyone in their right mind, when Galatians was his first letter and he lied this overtly, why would anybody believe anything the man had to say?
That's the $64 million question.
It is, isn't it? Or the 2.5 billion person question.
Million. Yeah, 2.5 billion.
So the goal was to spread out and cover and adorn the cherubim, the spiritual beings, winged spiritual beings of the Ark of the Covenant of Yahowah. Then it says, everything in writing inscribed by the hand of Yahowah. He provided insights and understanding for the entire plan of the work of the spiritual messenger and representative, Malaka. We do this show and the Shabbat program on Blog Talk Radio verbally. And there's a lot of people that like to listen to it, to do podcasts of it when they're driving or after dinner, or whatever time it's convenient for them to listen, either off their computer or podcast. And it's a verbal presentation of Yahowah's testimony and insights that can be gleaned from it. A little bit of a tutorial on some of the words that he's chosen to use. But primarily, we gather to study Yahowah's words in writing. And that's what you were talking about as you were to read these materials. You've got Yada Yah, an introduction to God, observations for our time, questioning Paul. All of these books collectively, about 7,000 to 8,000 pages of materials, are a written representation of Yahowah's testimony, translated in as accurate and complete a manner as is possible. And then a commentary on what some of these words individually mean. Should they be beyond what can be written about them in the context of the statement itself, as well as insights that can be drawn from it.
Yeah.
We prefer, for many reasons, one of which is God prefers, written communication. I get in squabbles with people from time to time. Say, let's just talk on the telephone. We can, we'll talk through this, and we won't have miscommunications like are prevalent with email. And my view is exactly the opposite. So is God's. Words are words, whether they're spoken or written, but you have an enduring record of them when they're written.
Over and over.
That's correct.
I can't do that even. I would have to push a button, go back with it. No, it's right there. You just look it up.
Yes. Now, this was Chronicles, which is Dabri Ha-Yomim, words of the time, words of the days. So when it says that Yahowah provided by his hand a written instruction regarding this, that would have been the Torah.
Mm-hmm.
And so what he's saying here is that the Torah is Yahweh's instructions, insights for understanding, shakal. He conveyed comprehension through effective teaching and instruction, leading to an appropriate response. And then the last word here is for the work of the spiritual messenger and representative. It is malaka. The only difference between malak and malaka, malak is the word, that Yahweh uses over and over again for spiritual envoy, heavenly messenger. The moronic Christians, with a disdain for all things Hebrew, don't recognize that Yosha spoke Hebrew and therefore never said agelos. And what Christians have done, because they hate Hebrew and they hate Yahowah, is that they've taken the Greek translations of what Yosha said, and the Greek translation for malak is agelos, and they have then transliterated it as if it were a name when it's simply a word. And so angel, which is a transliteration of agelos, is wrong by every possible way. The term Yahweh chose, and they're his beings, they're his Shabbat, his spiritual envoys, is malak.
Yeah, I think.
And once you know that, then you can look at malaka and say, well, that's the feminine of malak. And you get it. Covenant, by the way, is a feminine noun.
Yes. So is Torah.
Yeah, so is Torah.
So is Yahweh.
So is Yahweh. It's a feminine. They're all feminine nouns. Malaka is the feminine of malak, which is the Hebrew word for spiritual messenger and heavenly representative. And there is a connotation associated with malaka that suggests that it is the work or business of, and I don't have a problem with that. So it's the work of the spiritual messenger. It's the business of the heavenly representative.
Well, we're doing the work of our Father.
Mm-hmm. But this is everything associated with the covenant and the Ark of the Covenant. For us to participate in the covenant, Yahweh had to delineate specific instructions on behalf of not only his Malak, who protect the covenant's children, but also on behalf of the set-apart spirit, who plays an enormously important role in facilitating the work that's required for us to be part of God's family. So that's what's being conveyed there. So this is a very, very profound discussion. And we then hear Dode saying, then Dode said to Shalomah, his son, choose to be resolved, firm, and strong, and courageously act and engage. Do not be timid or afraid, and avoid confusion, because Yahweh Almighty, my God, will not be feeble or falter with you, or abandon you, ever, always and eternally, finishing and completing all of the work of the spiritual messenger in service of the heavenly representative for the tasks and efforts of the home of Yahowah. But once again, these are not just full of insights, but insights that are the antithesis of religion. What is, most people who are religious say, well, that teaches you to have a humble spirit and to be Gentile, right, and to be meek. No. Dode said to Solomon, his son, choose to be resolved, firm, and strong. That means don't be accepting, don't be compromising, don't be tolerant. a politician was one who's praised because they compromise. No, he says, be resolved, be firm.
Yeah, stand up.
Yeah, they're multicultural. We'll just accept everybody and everything. He said, no, be intense, be harsh. Seek every opportunity to repair and restore the relationship by being overpowering and persistent, always going beyond what might be expected. Be inflexible. Engage with a sense of urgency. Now, this was written in the call imperative, which means genuinely and of your own volition, you should be resolved, firm, and strong. Inflexible. Yahowah's not flexible. Yahowah doesn't compromise. Yahowah's not multicultural. Yahowah's not tolerant. He doesn't want his children to be.
No, Chazak is, to take by force, to possess, grab hold to, whatever.
Yeah. Choose to be intense.
No question, that's what it means.
All the times that initially I would be so intolerant, unaccepting, judgmental, as I would speak about to Christians, when Christians would approach the shows that I was on initially, and I would be very harsh with them. And someone said, you just don't act like Jesus. If you're going to represent God, you should act like Jesus. And you say, well, first of all, there's no Jesus. There's a Yahusha. And I don't know where you get the idea that he was meek, or that he was accepting, or that he was not judgmental.
No.
I mean, you obviously haven't read the same text that I have read. No. Yahowah is judgmental. He wants us to be judgmental. He wants us to be harsh. And that's right. It's the kindest thing we can actually do. Because if we accept that which is deadly and perverse and corrupting, then we aren't providing any value to anybody. When we tell people, listen, if you're a Christian, you're throwing away your soul. If you're promoting Christianity, you're putting yourself in a position where you're likely to spend your eternity in Sheol, separated from God. That's just the truth. Yeah. We tell people that Paul was a false prophet, that he's the plague of death.
Oh, but I like old Paul.
Yeah. That Jesus, there's no one named Jesus ever lived. That there is no such thing as a Jesus Christ. And while that sounds harsh and judgmental, the most compassionate and loving thing we could possibly tell those who have been beguiled by the religious. God also says, be courageous, amets. Be obstinate and stubborn, established and determined, intensely persistent. Again, it's the opposite of political correctness. It's the opposite of what man would have you be. It's the opposite of what we're being conditioned as a society, which is why you have to walk away from societal customs if you want to engage in the covenant. You have to be the opposite of what society would prescribe as good, as correct.
Well, I also found intellectual power as a Metz as well, and that would imply to me that you'd want to study and learn more. So
yes,
you're not waiting on something to come to you in your brain. You dig it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to be established It's hard to be established and determined if you aren't resolved intellectually. If you haven't studied the data, understand it, and take it to heart, incorporate it into your life. That's how you become established and determined. And then, and then he says, act and engage. Act and engage. You want to participate in the covenant? You got to act. Mm-hmm. If you want to approach the house for the name of Yahowah, you have to engage. The covenant is a family relationship, but to be part of that family, you must act and engage based upon the terms and conditions that Yahowah has articulated. Yeah. And Dode is telling Solomon, choose to engage. Choose to be firm. Choose to be resolved. Choose to be courageous. And then al-Yari, do not be timid or afraid.
Mm-hmm.
No reason to ever be timid or afraid. We've all done things in our life which would cause most people to cower. And once you're part of Yahowah's family, there's no reason to. When you're engaged doing what Yahowah wants done on behalf of his family, he is committed to assigning his malach to protect you. There's no reason whatsoever to be timid. Now, he did not say that I will preclude you from having the pain of kidney stones. Nor is, I had 2 weeks of pain associated with a twisted back.
Yes.
No, he's not removing us from the aches and pains of the world.
No, we're still deteriorating,
yes.
whether we like it or not. I don't want to live in this home forever.
Yeah, and that's part of the comparison between where we are and where we're going. It's appropriate for us to feel pain in this life. Mm-hmm. It's appropriate for us to deteriorate. It's appropriate for my back and knees not to be what they were and to be getting worse, my eyesight to be failing, my hearing to be failing, my ability to think waning. I don't think as fast. I don't move as fast. I'm not as flexible. I'm much more prone to nagging pain than I was as a young person now that I'm in my 60s. That's appropriate because if the contrast between where we are deteriorating, flawed mortals to what Yahowah is lifting us up when we sit down on that mercy seat, that throne, that transport device, that takes us away from all of those things, liberates us from them. And that's the message here. So don't be timid. Don't be afraid. Understand. You didn't say, you're going to feel no pain. If you felt no pain whatsoever, how would you grow? How would you have a backbone? How would you be resolved and firm and strong?
True.
So you've got to have some challenges. Then he says, because Yahowah Almighty, my God, will not be feeble or falter with you. So when he's telling his son to be resolved, firm, strong, and courageous, engage. Don't be timid or afraid. Even avoid confusion, which is the next one, which I forgot to say for some reason. Do not be dismayed or discouraged. Avoid corruption and misperceptions, misunderstandings, and muddled thinking. Yeah. Then he's saying, because these are all traits manifest by Yahowah. Yahowah is going to be these very same things. You want to be like Yahowah? Then be resolved, be firm, be strong. Be intolerant. Be determined and intensely persistent. Never be afraid. Avoid confusion. And then you'll be just like Yahowah. Yahowah is not a God of confusion. He has a plan. He's articulated his plan. He's very consistent with that plan. I love that al-Chadat. Do not be dismayed or discouraged. Avoid corruptions, misperceptions, misunderstandings, muddled thinking. Never panic. Never be confounded.
Mm-hmm.
Never become demoralized. Never be downcast. Never allow terrorism to shatter your resolve.
Right.
Just think of all the terrorism in the world. And the people
Don't even get discouraged.
Yeah.
You'll be all right.
Yeah, it's going to turn out fine. What do you have to worry about?
Yeah.
Don't be discouraged. And the way to avoid being discouraged is to avoid misunderstandings and misperceptions. The way to avoid misperceptions and misunderstandings is to know Yahowah and to observe his word. And to recognize that God's not into compromising. He's not multicultural. He's not politically correct.
Okay, you're going I can barely hear you. I don't know whether it's the microphone or...
Oh, I don't know what we have. Maybe we have an issue. But these traits are consistent with Yahowah's nature, and to be part of his family, he wants us to embody these traits. And they're the opposite traits of those that are conveyed by religious. Now you might say, okay, well, in Islam, they're sure as hell aggressive. But in Islam, keep this in mind. Muslims aren't, while they are harsh, they certainly are not what you would consider engaging in a sense of urgency or even seeking opportunities to repair and restore a relationship, which is part of shizak. They don't go there, and they're actually not strong. They're extraordinarily feeble.
They're cowardly.
Yeah, they're
actually they commit.
Yes, they are. In fact, that's why the vast preponderance throughout time, 100% of Muhammad's actions were against civilians, never against the military. And you look at suicide bombers today, and Muslims like the Islamic State, they're much more prone to attack women and children and kill civilians than they are anything else. So they're cowardly. And rather than this "do not be timid or afraid," their whole mantra is to terrorize, is to cause people to be afraid. And there is, to be a Muslim, you have to be wholly and completely confused. It's the most muddled thinking ever to permeate a book attributable to God. And of course, this is because Yahweh Almighty, my God, is like this, and of course with Islam, it's Allah. And this idea of being courageous, Muslims are cowards, always have been. They attack little girls. They're helpless.
Yeah, they rape the slaves, enslave and then rape them.
Right, that is correct. Yeah, it's just disgusting. But it says Yahweh will not be feeble or falter with you. He's not going to abandon you, ever, always, and eternally. If you choose to engage and become part of the covenant, if you're resolved and firm, you're courageous, if you act and engage in the covenant, if you do not fear God, but instead respect Him, if you avoid the confusion of religion, then Yahweh is going to do whatever is necessary. He will not falter with you. And He will always and eternally finish and complete all of the work spiritually that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And here it is, the all of kol, finishing, completing, that would be la kala, always and eternally, finishing and completing all of the work of the spiritual messenger, of the heavenly representatives, for the tasks and efforts of the home of Yahweh. Now, God's not, He didn't say, I'm going to do everything necessary for Israel to win every battle. No. He didn't say, I'm going to do everything for you to feel no pain. He didn't say, I'm going to do everything to make you fabulously rich. He's going to do everything, complete everything that needs to be done spiritually for the task and efforts, the abadah, the work of the home of Yahweh. What's the home of Yahweh? It's the covenant. Mm-hmm. The family of Yahweh. It's the only thing that He cares about, really. The land means something to Him because the land is where His home is. Jerusalem means something to Him because that's the capital of the land where His home is. Moriah means something to Him because that's the mountain upon which His home is placed in Jerusalem, in Yisrael. Everything, the chosen people are important to Him because they were the first to be invited to be part of His home. So the thing that God cares about, the one thing that He will assuredly do everything that's necessary to complete, is to provide all of the malaka, the work of the spiritual messenger and the heavenly representative, that would be the set-apart spirit, for the express purpose of the home of Yahweh, doing everything that is required. So once part of the covenant, always part of the covenant, and you can depend on Yahweh to do all of these things. Boy, there's some really wonderful words there, weren't there? We had shizak, make the choice to be intense. seeking every opportunity to repair and restore the relationship and dissuade people who would tear it apart, be uncompromising and tenacious. That's what you need to be if you want to be like God. Metz, be obstinate and stubborn, persistent, persevering, gutsy and brave.
Mentally astute, yeah.
Yeah, Asa, engage and act, expending considerable effort and energy and resources, doing what needs to be done, working at accomplishing the mission. Al-Yari, never fear, nor show any distress, even when the circumstances appear unfavorable. Do not be timid. Al-Cha'at, avoid confusion and corruption, misperceptions and misunderstandings. Do not be dismayed or discouraged. Never panic. Don't be broken. Don't be demoralized or downcast. Never allow terrorism to shatter your resolve. Those are...
it's all there. You ain't making this stuff up.
No, it's really, it's very, very...
translate that. I don't know why they don't, but...
powerful stuff. Yeah. And Solomon embarked on a journey with the entire assembled community which had gathered together in response to the summons with him, to the elevated place which beneficially was on Gibeon, because that is where the brilliant tent of the appointed meetings existed of the Almighty, which to beneficially show the way to the relationship, the associate of Yahowah had engaged in the wilderness. So here we have Solomon, after having listened to Dode's, his father's final words of advice to him. He embarked on a journey, walked, ventured out. That's what Yahowah wants. Engaged. Go, come on, let's go do stuff together. And he went out, not alone, but with the entire assembled community which had gathered together in response to the summon. All, the crowd, having associated and congregated for the express purpose of going out there with him to the elevated place which Asher beneficially led the way to the relationship, which was on Gibeon. Gibeon is a hill, which means that all that Gibeon means is on the hill. A location that happened to be 6 miles northeast of Jerusalem. You know, it's interesting, if you go east of Jerusalem, you're down there really, you're moving towards the river valley of the Jordan. But this was in the hill country above it. When you move in that direction, although it would be, this is much further away, but that's kind of the directions where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, by the way. Because that is where the brilliant tent, Oel, the shining dwelling and household, the radiant covered shelter, the home and habitation from Alal. It's just interesting that the word Oel is from Al, which means to shine clearly and brightly.
Right.
Now this is the brilliant tent of what? Of the appointed meetings. Yeah, of the appointed meetings. Yes, Yahowah's home on earth, the temporary. And actually, it's Yahowah's home. Don't ever think that it's a home for Yahowah. To say Yahowah's home, it's really a home for Yahowah's family. In Hebrew, the word home and family, same word, Be'eth. Basis of Be'ereth, the family-oriented relationship. And so the home it's for us. It's for the covenant. It's Yahowah's covenant, is his family, but the home is for his family. God's not living in it.
Kind of ludicrous.
No.
You don't need it.
But it's a temporary home for him to camp out with us and for us to live with him. Powerful insight. Well, we'll continue this when we join back together this evening on Yada Yah Radio. May God bless.